Hey, welcome to Braveheart Business Growth, where we champion and equip freedom and faith-minded business leaders to fuel growth so they can make a measurable difference in their community and the world. I'm Amy Alexander, the focus star of growth strategists.
And I'm David Mills. I'm the mad scientist of growth strategists, and we're missing our chaos theorist today. I think what happened is he came up with the new hedgehog principle last week, and he just retired after that because he was so brilliant that he was like a mic drop moment.
It was a mic drop moment. We will miss his shenanigans because Dave and I are just kind of serious and boring, let's be honest, but it's fine.
I'm not boring.
Today, you're not boring, Dave. I am definitely boring.
Thank you.
Today, we're starting part 1 of our Recession-Ready series. We did not say recession-proof because we don't want to be sensationalist. This is not intended to be like, a sensationalist, weird podcast. But we do want to recognize that what's on everyone's mind is that we have to keep moving the ball forward in the middle of a downturned economy. And what does that look like? And we have some really great ideas about that. So today we're going to focus on customer drivers.
That's a great thing to focus on. And I think before we dive in, I think it's important that, we talked in a previous podcast about the scarcity mindset, and we do not subscribe to the scarcity mindset. So people can call it whatever they want. I call it the business cycle, and it goes up and it goes down. It's normal for it to do that. We're in a really strange kind of trending business cycle, but the fear mongering thing is not where we live, nor do we want to encourage you to live there either. But we do want to acknowledge that a lot of our customers are living in that space where they're thinking about this stuff and they're worried about it. We know that they, in fact, are impacted by inflation. That's not fear mongering. That's just a fact. And we all have the same experience if we go to the grocery store and a bag that used to cost us $20 is now costing us 30 or 40 or whatever that number is. So customer drivers are one of the ways that we make sure that we're aligned with our customers. And if our customers are changing, if they're having things impact the way they think, what moves them forward, then we have to be able to align on a customer driver. And very simply, a customer driver is the thing that either moves the customer forward to yes or holds them back and keeps them in no. And when their thinking, when their world changes, then those drivers change, and that can change the amount of time that it takes for you to help them get to a good decision, which we hope might be yes for you, and overcome all the things that are stopping them from moving forward. And so this can change the speed of a sale, how fast the sales cycle is. It can also change whether or not people get diverted or they don't even successfully complete. And we all know that when people discover that we exist as a company and, our company, we exist to help mission-minded companies to do good, hard things. When someone discovers that we do that, then this decision journey is going, right? And so what's driving them forward? What's holding them back? And how can we help them to make a good decision? We got to understand what's making them tick before we can do that.
When it comes to businesses that have considered buyer journeys, okay, you're not selling commodities. That means you have a longer decision cycle. You're selling a service, not a product. You have, someone agreeing to maybe a contract over several months, or they're agreeing to spend a really large amount of money. That's considered buying process. We never, ever, ever advocate for competing on price because that's just no way to live, man. No one wants to compete on price, especially when you're selling a service, when you have expertise, when you have a product that has a ton of, dev behind it or, discovery and all that stuff. So,
or just highly qualified people that cost a lot of money for them to do what they do, right?
Right. Totally. So I think it's really easy when we talk about being recession ready and we talk about customer drivers. Well, the first thing on people's mind is like, where can I get a deal? How can I spend less money? And so what we want to do as business owners is not jump into the pool of price competition. We don't want to go to our competitors and say, well, we're in the middle of a recession, so we just have to cost less. Because getting back out of that pool is, it's not impossible, but it's painful. And it's going to leave you with clients you just don't want. And I think that's probably the most key element. You're going to end up getting clients who are not aligned with your values, who don't appreciate what it is you have to offer, and who just frankly aren't qualified. So, let's set that aside. Let's set price competitiveness aside. It doesn't mean you can't start giving people some deals, and it doesn't mean that we ignore the price issue, but let's not compete on price. Let's do some other stuff instead. So how do you think, Dave, we get into the customer's mindset?
Yeah. So I think that, I think we have to think first, Amy, before we think about how we get in their head, I think we have to ask the question, have their drivers changed? And so I think everyone has to agree. Like if you look back over the last 2 years, everyone knows that customer behavior changed. We know that brand loyalty was broken for tons of brands. Every time that happens, of course, it's a great opportunity for you to do something new, to step into a new space. So to be honest, part of being recession ready is actually thinking like an entrepreneur. And so let's get in your head for a second. Are you in the scarcity mindset, or are you thinking like an entrepreneur and recognizing that shifts in our customer drivers are opening the door for us to do things we couldn't do before and to do things in a new way, which I think is actually great fun, is super exciting. And so I just want to ask the question, do you think customer drivers have changed? And I know we can say looking back, the answer is for sure. And now we have to look ahead, and that's always way harder. So if we look at today, we know that there are price pressures on our customers, and at varying degrees. There are some, if you're in B2B, there are some companies that are still doing extremely well. They are extremely busy. We have many clients that are extremely busy, and they are not feeling any of these impacts at all at this point. Now, looking forward, we don't know where they'll be in 6 to 9 months, but we have to understand that your B2B customers may already be making adjustments to the fear of a recession or to a scarcity mindset. So that may change the way they're thinking. One of the things that happens is that sometimes they just begin to become less aggressive in their decision-making, and they just slow things down. That's one of the things that happens pretty commonly. And they also become more risk adverse. So if you're seeing those things in your customers, they're risk adverse, they're bringing more people into the buying decision. The buying committee keeps getting bigger. Nobody wants to be on the hook for a decision, or they're slowing things down. Then that's an indication to you that some of their drivers have changed. And it may not be that their positive drivers that moving forward have changed. It could be that the negatives, which are fear, anxiety, those things may be holding them back in a big way right now. So you have to answer this question for yourself. In your industry, with your customers, how are their drivers changing? Are they moving ahead as quickly? If they're not, there's a good signal to you that something has changed in their thinking or in their environment. So that's how we have to measure it. And it's a little bit, unfortunately, by Braille. We have to evaluate what's real for us today. We can't just look forward to someone's projection. The problem with all the projections is that they create a reality that may or may not actually exist. Yeah. And so it's kind of like, reality, the perception becomes reality, even if it's somebody casting a negative perception in advance.
I am not a historian. That's not things I know. But I do know that psychologically, one of the things that tends to happen during recessions, especially major recessions, is that people's mindsets shift to looking for hope, looking for entertainment. We can see historically that people spend more money on things like going to the movies, or, like during the Depression, people spent a lot of money on alcohol, parties, entertainment, simply because they were looking for any kind of escape. So I think we can look at history and say, especially in your own industry, how are people's behaviors changing? And how much more receptive are they to hopeful conversations, to optimism, to any kind of approach that you can give within your industry that brings people out of the mire and gives them a vision that they didn't think was possible. So that's something else I think maybe to consider.
Yeah, that's a good insight. So you're really saying, like, saying like potato chips and soda are going to still sell well no matter what the economy's doing. And that's an important thing to think about. So what if I'm, as a business, what if I'm not a potato chip or soda seller?
Yeah.
Right. So if I'm not in the default position of junk food, essentially sugar, salt, and grease, in some combination thereof, plus some chemicals for coloring. If I'm not in that business, then how do I stay in sync with my customers? Because we know over the last 2 years, a lot of the loyalty between customers and companies has been broken, right? When you go to the grocery store and you can't find toilet paper, the brand that you prefer, whatever one that might be, then you're going to find the next brand because you have a need, right? A real need that you're going to have to take care of with that toilet paper. So, so I think it's important, to think about that. And if you're not a potato chip and soda company, then you've really got to think about, how do I realign on needs that my buyers have that I may not have been thinking about, or problems I may not have been addressing that my product or service might actually be a very good solution for. So I think that's an important part of this.
There's an opportunity to differentiate in a new way. When everyone in the market is starting to compete on price, or is being a lot more price sensitive, or being sensationalist about recession, or all of those things, I think as business leaders, we have an opportunity to differentiate and message in a way that we didn't before. Like I mentioned before, if we don't have a scarcity mindset, if we have a growth mindset, or if we are approaching tomorrow with the lens of opportunity and innovation, that messaging and that vibe comes across to clients too. And so, yeah, it's the interesting opportunity, I think.
Yeah, and so, if you think back, if you've been in the grocery store recently and you've purchased anything that's in a can, you will notice that all the cans are smaller, right? So my wife was telling me over the holidays, over Thanksgiving holiday, that she was looking at the recipe, looking at the can, right? It's a different number of ounces in that can than there are in the recipe, which is evidence of how a company has adjusted to an economic reality, right? And what they changed was their packaging. And so if you understand what's driving your customers, they might actually object to the high ticket price on something you offer, but they might not object to a portion of what you offer with a different packaging price on it, and allowing you to offer, because in the end, if you can build trust with somebody and give them great service and give them exactly what they need, you can keep that customer, even if they start at a different dollar amount to begin with. So I think, getting down to customer drivers is really what determines how we package, how we message, and how we compete. And I think those are all driven by our understanding of what our customer drivers are.
And what a great way to respond to price concerns. If you have a way of providing legitimate value, I think what's frustrating in that example of the can is you're just getting less for the same amount. And how frustrating is that? But alternatively, when you have service packages and you have the opportunity to maybe package things a little bit differently, provide a little bit less, and then charge less for that, it's not about downgrading what it is you offer, and it's not about getting a less for your high paid services or your expensive product. But it is about opening up the door to a different opportunity for people that they may not have had otherwise, given the recession. So I think that's a really solid, practical way of addressing price without getting into like a weird competitive price world.
It reminds me of kind of the New York style pizza. In my trips to New York, one of the things I always notice, and it's the New York style, right? They sell it by the slice. Pizza by the slice. Well, in the pizza places I go to around here, they don't sell pizza by the slice. They sell it by the pie. So, there is opportunity for us to sell slices of things that are valuable to people, but we got to understand. I I think it'd be helpful, Amy, if we were to kind of break down what are customer drivers and how do we get in sync with them? How do we get in touch with them? And so I like
Yeah.
to group customer drivers into two categories. One category is the things that are helping us to make decisions and take steps forward. And then the opposite is the things that are stopping us from making decisions and keeping us or holding us back. And so I think if you begin thinking about what's moving your customer forward, what's holding them back, many of those things are things you should be thinking about. So one thing would be, what are the problems that your customers are facing that are causing them to seek a solution? And I'd encourage, if you're listening to the podcast, I'd encourage you just to start making notes to yourself. What are some of the problems that your customers are responding to that cause them to seek a solution, right? So that's a super important thing for you to do. The other thing you should be thinking about is, what are the future states, the goals they have that they're trying to achieve? How does your service take them there? That's something that they want to become, they want their company to become, they want to be able to do or offer. So the problem and the goal are two important parts of what moves us forward. And so the question you have to ask is, have those two things changed? Have the problems changed? Well, they probably haven't really changed, but there might be some new ones that we're adding with a business cycle change. What about the goals? People might lower their goals, possibly. They might have less aggressive goals. Those are two areas. So the other side of this are the things that are pulling me down and stopping me from moving forward. And those things include things like the way I've always done things. And that's one thing that stops people from moving forward, is they always do things a certain way. And so if you have loyal customers right now, you know that many of them are used to working with you in a very specific way. And they're probably unlikely to change that unless something dramatically changes for them. And you do want people to get into that rhythm of working with you. I wrote a blog recently, Amy, about my power washing company that abandoned me. And they never called me back, right? I would have been a loyal customer. I would have. I'm ready for another power washing, but they never called me back, right? So they lost this chance for this loyal. It would have been a routine where, like, every 6 months or 9 months, they would have come and power wash the mold, or, the pollen off my house. So I think that, this ability for us to understand that now, if you're trying to get a new customer and they are used to doing things a certain way, then that's something you have to address. They're getting stuck in a cycle, a business cycle, or a decision cycle that's based upon what they've always done before. And that will keep them stuck, right? Does that change during a business cycle downturn? Do the habits of people change? What do you think, Amy?
Yeah, I think it depends. One thing that I always find really important to address with people is staying in the problem, talking about problems, staying in the pain lane. So if we could, I'd love to go through some of these drivers and give really hardcore examples from different types of industries, just to make them a little concrete. So there's a reason we have to talk about problems. A lot of people like to focus on the solution. I think most places you go, whether you're talking to a salesperson or whether you're looking at a website or looking at a brochure, any kind of marketing material, you're often going to see a solution. Here's what we solve. Here's what value we provide. It's very logical to start there. It's like you meet someone at a party and you say, "Hey, I'm so-and-so, and this is what I do for a living." It's how we talk about ourselves. But when people are coming to a brand, what they need to see is how their problem can be addressed. And when you force people to map themselves from problem to solution, you're creating a lot of roadblocks and boundaries around them discovering that you are, in fact, a solution they could use for their problem. So it's extremely practical to start talking about problems before you get to the solutions that you offer. So when you think about problems, it's really just about talking to your sales team and saying, why are people coming? What are they complaining about? What questions are they asking? I know for us, it's often about a lack of clarity. Like in marketing, it's like all just one big jumble of spaghetti on a wall. some of which has fallen off. Sometimes it's as practical as, hey, I just need a new website. That's my problem. So sometimes things are practical and sometimes they're more ethereal, conceptual. We have a IT disposal company, and for them, a lot of times their problems are very practical. People have a storeroom full of legacy equipment that was taken out of all over, right? And it's been put in this storage room shelves, and they don't know what to do with all of this tech equipment, and they just need someone to come and take it away. And so really think through those initial problems.
Before you go on, Amy, so just think about the power of this. When we are aligned with the problems that our customers and future customers are facing, it's one of the things that has the power to shake them out of their previous habits, and their previous ways of doing things, right? So alignment, and we learned this, I did some learning in the area of counseling, and one of the things we learn is in order to change someone, we have to first unfreeze them before we can refreeze them, right? So there has to be this heat. There has to be this challenge. Now, the challenge either comes from the problem, as you're stating, or the other part of what moves us forward is our goals, right? Where we want to be in the future, where we're trying to go. And so, the heat can come from either thing. The desire to move forward, think about your own desires, like your own interests, the things you want to accomplish in life. This can be extremely powerful. And so either one of these can create heat, right? And frustration. And so we have to align with that. People have to get the fact that we have been there too, that we understand that, we empathize with them, we get it, right? And we're not just, as you said, Amy, just preaching our solution all the time, but we're actually empathizing with their pain, their challenges, right? That's a problem and a goal. Those move us forward. And so another example of a goal would be around just growth. People tell us all the time, my website, I had someone tell me last week, how many leads do you have in the last month from your website? And I said 0. How many in the last quarter? They said 0, right? And this is not a small company. This is a good sized company, right? So it's very common for people to have this goal of, I know I have to compete online, but I'm not able to do it right now. Something's not right, right? So it could be a general goal. I've got to do better online, and they know they have to do that. Or it could be a financial goal. I know I need X number of leads to get to this growth rate. My sales guys need something to do, right? I've tried to buy leads and it didn't work, right? So these are very practical things that drive us forward. For some people, the goals could be expanding to a new service line, to a new location. Some people want to purchase another company to expand. So a lot of the goals focus around that. Sometimes they're lifestyle. I can't even talk today. It's like turkey on the brain or something. They could be lifestyle goals. Like, I don't want to work this hard anymore. I want to hire somebody else to do this part of my job because I don't want to keep doing it. I have to grow a little bit.
We have a client, often people come to them because they want to sell their company in the next 3 to 5 years. And so they have to be able to show very measurably that it's valuable and worth something.
Yeah. And so they're trying to set their company up for that kind of evidence, and they want to have a team in place that they could step out so that they could, if you're going to sell your company, you're going to have to step out and someone else is going to have to pick up the work. And you got to be able to prove to that purchaser that your team is really sharp and they can handle it, right? So if it's a one-man show, if you're a solopreneur, and that could be a strong goal. I want to hire some other people to do these jobs. I can do them, but I'm tired of doing them. So all of those are things that move us forward. In a bigger setting, in a B2B kind of setting where there's a bigger buying team, typically these goals are agreed upon. Sometimes they're imposed, where you have to grow X% this year, or you have to close this many sales. Could be a quota. One of our software partners told me that their quota had been dramatically increased for their monthly quota, right? So that could be externally driven that way. It's a goal you now have to meet. But sometimes they are functionality goals where, we've got to be able to do X, Y, and Z to be able to compete. And so we have to do that. So those are all things that move people forward and cause them to make decisions more quickly, And I wonder how those are being impacted by concerns about business cycle changes. We need to figure out how to ask those questions of your customers and look at their behaviors.
Yeah. So on the other side of it, the things that are holding them back side, we don't often recognize, especially in B2B, just how emotional purchases are. We know that food purchases are emotional. We know that clothing purchases are emotional. We know that, for men, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's like
Golf
a cool
clubs,
new
come on.
hunting rifle okay, sure. But but in B2B, we often hear people say, "Oh, well, it's B2B, so it's not quite so emotional." But that's not true. It's very emotional. And so and certainly there are multiple people's emotions often in B2B. So there's a lot of red tape to get through, a lot of people to convince, so to speak, or um a lot of barriers, circles to get past. But even so, it is emotional. So we often tell people that when we are working on drivers and communicating on the emotional, I'm being held back side of the conversation, that language does need to be, for lack of a better word, emotional. What are great examples, Dave, other than what we've always done?
Right. So I think one thing we have to keep in mind is that a lot of the emotion in a decision is about my personal success or failure. I'm involved in making this
Yeah.
decision, whether I'm the business owner or I'm part of a team or I'm in the C-suite or I'm the marketing manager. The decisions are going to impact my career, right, and my life. So a lot of the anxiety and the emotional element is really about how is this going to work? Can I handle what's going to happen when you guys start doing your thing? Are you going to overwhelm me? Are you going to embarrass me? Are you going to make me look good or bad? Right. So there's a lot of emotional stuff that circles around that. More than anything else, I think that's what it boils down to.
Yeah.
And some of that, some of that is an ego thing where people want to look good for others, and that's a real driver for people. And I will say, we've had a couple of our clients get acquired or merge in the last year, and I think part of it was not just the business, fundamentals, but it was also we made them look pretty good. And so there is
Hmm.
this element of looking good does count, although it's not the primary thing. It does matter. And if you look like you're from the 1900s online, then people are going to think that you are. So
Yeah, it's definitely part of the scorecard, like
yeah,
when someone's it's part of the scorecard when you're being purchased or acquired, but it's also part of the trust. Chad and I were talking today about the reality that trust comes before growth, and trust comes before a decision. And this is not news to you if you've ever sold anything ever, but absolutely you have to spend time with people, and kind of nailing the emotional hangups people have or the emotional drivers they have for their decision will earn you trust. And it's easy, I think, when you recognize that, to actually be manipulative. And so as people who, for us, we're Jesus loving, Bible following people. And in that kind of like biblical leader world, it's really important that we can address emotions in a practical way or in an honest way that isn't manipulative.
yeah, and there is a lot of play on that.
Well, I think that goes back to the fear mongering too.
Yeah,
I mean, and just the kind of, how can you be recession proof? Well, that's kind of a manipulatively emotional title. It's the reason we didn't choose it. We don't want to be recession proof. That's sensational. But we do want to be recession ready and smart. So there are ways, I think, to be nuanced in the way you're communicating, even as a salesperson. One is honest and one is manipulative. We
and
want
I
to
do
avoid
think that
manipulation.
people know a pitch when they're getting it, and people have come to know, that fear manipulation is becoming very obvious. People understand when they get it. And so I think it actually backfires a lot. People try and use kind of fear
Yes.
tactics, and I don't think it works, very well. I think people don't respond to it, but we do, as you said, we have to address our emotions. So in the last couple minutes we have in our podcast today, I think we should just talk about how can we stay in sync with our customers. And so I think I have two ways I think you could do that. One is I think you should ask them. Ask them how the economy is impacting them, how it's changing their decision process. Just have conversations with them and just simply take their pulse by talking to them. The second one I think is important is to just begin looking at behaviors. What is your sales cycle? How long is it? Has it shifted? How long is it between the first contact and the closing conversation? It's not just the total length of that sales cycle, but all the elements in between. And then also, how many people are playing in the buying team? Are there more people playing in the buying team? Or are more people being called in? All those are signals to you that you, and by paying attention, you can really stay in sync with where your customers are.
Yeah, that's great. Well, we'll be back next week with another recession-ready part 2. And yeah, we hope this is helpful. We hope that y'all are taking time to get recession ready. We certainly are. And we also know, for those of us who are believers, that we have the hope of the Lord. So other than being recession ready in our business, we can just be prayerful, put our hope and faith in Jesus, and tomorrow's going to be fine.
And I think no matter what happens with the economic cycle, in the end, it comes back to being an agile leader and having an agile company that's able to flex and adjust as things change around us, and not just trusting in the status quo, right? As Amy said, we trust in God's providence in our life. We trust in his guidance in our life. And we also make sure that we are able to be flexible and agile. And that's what I think this is about more than anything else.
I wouldn't mind leaving it on maybe something really important that we should be doing as biblical leaders is just tuning in a little better to the voice of the Holy Spirit, taking more time in prayer, making sure that we have really solid habits around listening, because that is totally crucial, right? Is just listening. All right, guys, we'll see you next week.